maar die proses om ook hierdie probleem in ons land uit te sorteer. Dankie vir elkeen wat gewerk het daar vandag. Die konferensie op die symposium gaan dan lei tot 'n media conferentie wat ons morgenmiddag sal hou. And as I mentioned earlier, you will have all the information available in print or on CD afterwards. And it's important, if you haven't registered yet, to do that, so that we've got your particulars so that we can send it to you. Vriende, voordat ons verder gaan dan, ek wil vir Stouladmiraal Ockie van die Schyff aan die woord stel. Hy is ons hoofuitvoerende beampte, soos ek reeds gesê het. En hy gaan vir julle dan verder met die verrigtinge gesels, en ek wil vir hom ook baie dankie sê vir alles wat hy doen in hierdie verband. Admiraal Ockie.
Die nasionale voorsitter. Ek wil ook baie graag my hartelike dankie sê aan diegene wat vandag hier so is, tyd ingeruim het om te doen. Ons waardeer dit regtig baie. Daar van diegene wat van ver af gekom het om die symposium by te woon, en daar gaan nog steeds mense van ver af kom wat in aantocht is, welkom op aan. Chairperson, we are here today to discuss and deliberate about the forgotten peoples of South Africa. And we're talking about the victims of crime. In 1994, an interim constitution of South Africa was approved, followed in by the 1996 version, which is in force today. The constitution is recognized worldwide as one of the most pragmatic pieces of legislation which embraces fundamental rights and human rights and the rule of law. The founding principles that form the basis of the Constitution is articulated by the right to life, human dignity and freedom. This progressive document has unfortunately been stained by the unacceptable crime situation in this country. Although the answer to the human rights question is embedded in the Constitution, mere words on a piece of paper is not enough to deliver victims of crime from criminal attacks, or to promise men, women and children that they may be safe in their own homes, or that their dignity or freedom will never be violated. Chairperson, there can be no freedom, right to life or dignity, if the peoples of this country are subjected to a criminal onslaught that is executed with impunity, thereby leaving families stripped of their livelihood and loved ones. We cannot claim freedom if we conduct a successful 2010 tournament in the eyes of the world, but that same world shuts its eyes to the gross violations of human rights. With Freedom Day on the 22nd of April, it should reconfirm to all in South Africa, and especially the victims of crime, that they have to be protected by the Constitution. Everyone has a right to life. Everyone has a right to be free from harm. Everyone has a right to personal security. To be constantly under threat of attack diminishes the quality of life of every man, woman and child. Surely that cannot be acceptable. More than a decade ago, Justice Edmund Cameron of the Supreme Court of Appeal said that our freedom is impaired, ironically not by the state as was experienced during the apartheid era by means of unbridled state intervention, but because of the inability of government agencies to act decisively to curb crime. No significant progress has been made. In fact, the murder rate has stayed the same, according to my figures. Attacks on private houses and businesses have increased and are reported to reach the highest figures in 14 years. But where do we stand today? A crucial challenge facing the state in its transition to democracy has been a dramatic increase in violent crime. Citizens have become increasingly frustrated, calling for harsher measures to fight crime. The negative effect of this situation is the unfortunate plight of victims of crime whose fundamental rights are consistently being ignored. During the symposium, you will hear from experts on the current situation in South Africa. Now, since 1994, the crime rate and specifically violent crimes have been on the increase. In our submission to the Human Rights Commission in January 2007, Nakisa reconfirmed that according to SAPS's statistics for the 05-06 financial year, 752,000 individuals were victims of contact crimes. I'm talking about murder, rape, assault, etc. Multiplying this number by 3 dependents translates to approximately 2.25 million individuals directly or indirectly affected by violent crime every year. A recent report by IBC indicates that South Africa has officially overtaken Iraq with the most civilian deaths per month. The chance of being killed in South Africa is 1 in 4. A prominent clinical psychiatrist in Pretoria recently reported that between 30 and 35% of all his patients suffer from post-traumatic stress due to violent crime. Even the private sector cannot escape the effect of criminal behavior, and specifically violent crime. A recent study conducted by the international audit firm Grant Thornton shows in its International Business Report of 2007 that more than 8 out of 10 owners of private enterprises in Africa reported that they and members of their family or their employees have been victims of violent crime. This has a direct knock-on effect in that security costs rose by 88%. Furthermore, 65% of the respondees indicated that there was a significant reduction in productivity and motivation due to the crime situation. Chairperson, while the aim of the criminal justice system is often directed at apprehending criminals, very little attention is given to the victims of violent crime, who are either killed or suffer non-fatal injuries or losses for which they are not recompensed. I'm not talking about independents that suffer in both cases. The suffering includes emotional and psychological trauma, and victims are frequently obliged to undergo lengthy periods of medical and psychological care following a violent crime. In these circumstances, and given the suffering invariably caused to the most vulnerable sections of society, talking about the poor, in particular dependents of the poor, there is a clear need for such victims to be compensated. Although we acknowledge the efforts by some stakeholders to fight crime, not enough effort and resources have been committed in helping the victims of crime. Although the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development has drafted the so-called Service Charter for Victims of Crime in South Africa to address some of the needs, the rights promised in the Charter are vague, limited, and in many cases qualified. No such sustainable victims funds that can support victims of crime for urgent financial needs are envisaged by government. Alternate but sustainable programs need to be developed to address this void. I am of the opinion that organized business together with dedicated NGOs such as Nakisa must play a more prominent role in this regard. A study by the Institute of Security Studies in 1997 on the status of victims in the criminal justice system indicated that, and I quote, "Instead of active participation in the process of justice, victims or witnesses, as they become known, are treated as obstacles in a process conducted mainly between the state and the offender. Requests for information and updates on progress of cases are largely ignored, and restitution from the offender, let alone compensation, particularly for victims of violent crime, is almost non-existent. In addition, counseling and referral services for victims of crime are largely fragmented, under-resourced, and offer a limited service mainly to victims of sexual offences." The study goes on to say, "There is an imbalance between the rights of victims and those of the accused within the criminal justice system. The criminal justice system, however, does not serve any of its clients well and is disempowering for both victims and offenders, or indeed anyone coming into contact with victims.